The 2023 Summer IDN ChatGPT and Generative AI in Education Jamboree was a great success, with 3 webinars and 2 lightning round sessions offered from May through July. A record of 415 IDN webinar attendees earned the IDN Professional Development Digital Badge and Award by attending at least 2 of these webinars and meeting the required criteria. Many IDN community members shared with us in the webinar surveys that they had learned so much in the webinars on innovative applications and effective practices of ChatGPT and generative AI in educational settings. Members also expressed their desire to continuously explore, learn, and share in this topic area. So, in response to this need, here we are today. I'd like to ask my first question: how might AI disrupt traditional models of higher education, such as the lecture-based model, and what might the alternatives look like? I'm opening up this to our panels. Guest speakers, please feel free to jump in.
I'll start there, Tom.
Thank you.
I think that what we'll see is a lot more authentic assessment, and that then we'll have to move backward into how we present material. So if we're asking students if we're assessing their knowledge and skills in real life contexts, then they're probably getting the information in more authentic real life contexts as well. With that said, it's going to be enormously complex, and not necessarily this won't be the year we get everything right.
Thank you, Anna.
I'll chime in. I think there's a real opportunity for flipped learning here. Having students bring drafts of things, generate content, definitely not in a finalized form, and then come to class being ready to talk about it and talk about what went right with their search for information, how ChatGPT measured up, how they can improve on things. So I'd like to see more of that.
And I would also add, I think there's a real opportunity for more individualized learning opportunities where AI can assess students' level of mastery where they are and develop learning plans specifically for them. That would be a really exciting avenue to go.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Sarah Lewis here. I'm really excited about having students move into being doers and not just listeners. So AI is going to give us an opportunity to basically save time. Once we get better at it, there's going to be definitely a break-in period. But I think that ultimately it will be able to save us time so that we can, like Anna says, focus more on skills. So that's the exciting part for me, I think.
I also wanted to mention that, say, a faculty member or instructor really likes the lecture format. One interesting thing that generative AI can do is if you have a transcript or an outline of that lecture, you can ask ChatGPT or another tool to kind of chunk that content. Where are good places to have a pop-up question? Where can you insert bonus material? Where can you have students discuss a topic? So I think that's a really interesting way of using ChatGPT and other tools for a lecture format.
I'd like to chime in. Yeah, I totally agree with Laura, and I was just going to chime in and say it can help the faculty member brainstorm different ways to engage the student. with the content that you already have. Like Laura was saying, chunking your content and then asking, what are some 3 to 5 strategies I could use to engage my learners in active participation, whatever it may be. And you can also have it provide you with case studies as well. When we go back to thinking about authentic assessments, making our assessments meaningful to the student is a big deal. And so it can really help provide us with those type of scenarios as well.
And students who, I'm going to piggyback off of Heather, and students who need or request study guides. If your lecture has been recorded, you have to have a transcript. They can take that transcript, put it into ChatGPT or something else and request a study guide, or it can create their own personal quiz that will help them with the materials. So I think that using AI as a teaching tool, and one of the big things is having it, using it for streamlining faculty's work as well. They can take their own chat transcript and make a quiz, or they can do all kinds of different things and help them with the some of the tasks that they have to do daily.
I'm really glad that this question was the first one, because I think I was reading a great article that talked about the natural fear of change that humans have, and especially with AI. And there's such a long, rich tradition in humanity of lecture and of information being passed directly from teacher to student for thousands of years. That can't go away. It won't go away. And that's one of the places where humans will come in, where AI can't disrupt us, because the lecture is an art. It's a beautiful, beautiful art. And AI has the power, as my colleagues have said, to take that art and refine it in a new way to meet today's audience. But AI is, I'm using AI in all sorts of presentations right now. And I love the little bots and Canva, and it's a fun thing to get people's attention, but that can never have the same expression as human-to-human contact. And so I think lecture itself will always be alive, but it will change and meet learners where they are in new and better ways.
I am excited about the possibilities of how AI will sort of redefine what student-to-content interaction looks like. I think kind of what examples I've been hearing sort of point to that, right? This idea that perhaps student-to-content interactions are more conversational. And I think that would be kind of a good thing, right? So when I think about how these tools will evolve and how they'll evolve with regard to assisting students learning, I think being a little more of sort of a go-between and providing students with an opportunity to ask questions and get responses that feel very conversational, I think is I think an important development in the work that we'll be doing as educators.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, Arturo's idea that this is going to be more conversational. I loved that Paige brought up that students can make their own study guides. We're talking a lot about what does this mean for teaching? And we can use it to help our teaching, but don't let our students use it to help them with creating their assignments. I think that the conversations have to be more about discernment, more about learning how to actually read what's delivered by ChatGPT and how to make heads or tails of what's good and what's not, right? It's a great tool, leverage the greatness, and then you need to moderate what's going on that's not good and take care of that. So we can't take the okay for me, but not for thee attitude and say, I'm going to use it to design my classes. If you use it to do my assignments, you're cheating. We have to start talking about transparency and how we design our classes, right? How we design our assignments. I used ChatGPT to help me with this lecture. It gave me this. It wasn't good, so I altered it a little bit. And showing our students the appropriate ethical ways to use it and teaching them that discernment, having those conversations. I loved her example about somebody else had an example of having ChatGPT read things and give them ideas that they can talk about in class. I love that. as an all online campus in Texas, our students don't get a chance to come in face to face with our faculty members and talk. So we've really got to look at how we address that in the classroom, and it really changes the face of online learning significantly. So we can either embrace that and do that transparent conversational learning, or then we run into the issues of just trying to put out cheating fires all over. So I'm really excited to hear everyone on the panel talking about those conversations and the different ways that we can bring it in with our students.
And talking about it being more conversational, I think that we have an incredible opportunity to get to know our students better when we are assigning them different projects or an essay, something like that. One way that we can not prevent, but hopefully prevent students from only using ChatGPT to deliver assignments is asking them for their opinion, asking them for a reflection. How do they feel about this? So really, I mean, what an opportunity for us as educators to really get some insight into who our students are, what are their hopes, their dreams, their experiences. So I see this as a great opportunity.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for sharing all those wonderful insights. And so regarding how to assess students and how to handle, the potential utilizing ChatGPT or other AI tool in cheating. And Raymond asked a very good question in Q&A. What are the alternatives to undetectable AI that some students are now using to get around Turnitin AI detector? So do you have any strategies or any other better AI detecting tool that you would like to share? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. One of the things that I'm glad you brought up Turnitin, because that is an AI. You're asking an AI to judge another AI. And Turnitin has its own disclaimer that very clearly states that it should not be used for punitive. I can give you an example of a faculty member who did decide to use it as punitive, and the student actually filed a grievance and won because she was able to prove that she had just used it for grammar and spelling. So one of the things that I think we need to think about is a proactive versus punitive approach to AI detection. And with that being said, we need to understand and teach our students what it is AI does, and that, yes, oh, sure, you can use it, but you need to state that you used it and how you used it. And you can ask them to also provide you a link to the chat history. So if they're using it, they can actually go to Bing and use Bing AI, which is ChatGPT 4, and they can actually send you and submit a link of what they've done in the AI and how they've used it, so that you can see their trail of thought, as well as you can also go back and decide whether or not, did they really create their own material, or did they totally rely on it? And you can see the process. Not only are you teaching the student what the AI is doing, but you're also helping yourself by figuring out what the AI is doing, so that you can go back and you can change those assessments so that it may not be quite so easy to use an AI to get an exact answer that you're looking for. But again, I think the whole key of it is that it is proactive versus punitive. And I think we need to really stay away from the words fear and everything else. I like to think about this when calculators were being used, and math teachers were like, oh no, you're never going to use a calculator in my class. No, 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 no. And now calculator is expected. So AI is going to be the exact same thing as a calculator to math faculty at some point. So I think we just have to figure out a way that we're going to use it so that we learn at the same time, because it is evolving so fast. So we have to try to use all of the tools that we have available to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree with Paige. And also, they can have, students can have something generated from one Gen A chatbot, take that information, put it in another chatbot, ask it to revise it. It'll revise it. They can put it in another one, revise it, change some stuff, and then you will never know that it was Gen AI generated. And I believe Heather and Anna did a presentation, and IDN and Sarah as well. They were together on that, the 2 sessions. So they can chime in, but yeah, I agree that we should be more into the business of figuring out why our students are cheating and looking at our assessments, making them more authentic, and being coaches instead of the punishers of working with students and plagiarism.
Yeah, I'm actually coming from the academic affairs side of the house in 7 years of teaching in the academic success department. So working with first-year freshmen in an open access institution, much of my study has been in persistence and retention. And having an adversarial conversation with a student about plagiarism, that can be all it takes for one student to not only drop the class, but to not come back. Because if they've come in and they've worked and they've tried and they've submitted something, even if they misused AI accidentally or potentially on purpose, that accusation alone, if it's not phrased in a very intentional coaching manner, could be enough to make a student leave college. So I think too, when we look at the students of today, they're all going to be using AI in their jobs. I have a master's degree in English and I use AI to write every single day. It's awesome. I just finished a dissertation. I don't want to write anymore. But where the true skill comes in is in reading what I'm collaborating with AI with and being able to critically read, critically think, spot its errors. And so I think we need to shift our focus when we're teaching to having students collaborate with AI in the classroom the way they're going to collaborate with it on the job in the future, and really focusing on ethics and on their thinking process and on their literacy so that they will be productive collaborators.
And I'll just chime in that no, Heather did not use AI to write her dissertation. She just doesn't want to write anymore because she finished her dissertation. I saw that pop up in the chat, so I thought I'd come in for you there. And this group is so, like, we're the early adopters and we're enthusiastic and we see the big picture. And I know that there are faculty members on this call who are like, I have 1 week and I don't see the big picture and I'm not a user yet. So I would just kind of chime in there with, you might miss a cheater this semester and it's okay, right? You might change an assignment and it might not go the way that you want it to go, and it's okay. So just remember that, we're all in this together. Who at your institution is enthusiastic? Where can you find mentors and so on, so that you don't feel like you're reinventing the wheel and then getting frustrated by what's happening with students.
I think there are some other things that we can look at, and I think there are so many tools, but really we as educators are the first line of defense when it comes to being proactive and trying to prevent plagiarism. I think I read an article earlier this week that just pointed out a few things. Look for similar topics and similar points of view from groups of students. So if half the class is coming in with the same thing, that may be something to look at. Monitoring the writing style of the students. I'm lucky I teach graduate students, so I may have 30 in my class. I know their writing styles. I know their speaking styles. Even if we do a flip at the beginning of class, I can internalize some of that. And if it seems way out of the park or very formal, we should know our students, or try to get to know our students. We can also be very specific in the questions that we ask during these assessments or assignments, and making it, something that might be a bit trickier for ChatGPT or another tool to answer. And complexity of the writing is just another another thing, if it's way above where the students are, that may be a sign. So yeah, just some thoughts there.
You can also, input, if you're just curious how AI will answer a question that you have, just put your instructions or put your prompt into one of the Gen AI chatbots, Bing, Claude, ChatGPT, and see what it says to you and go, aha. And you can do that on several different of the foundational models that are out there and see what it comes up with. If it's, and then you can adjust from there, but you can get an idea of, what students, what it's going to produce. And it won't produce the same answer either every single time. So that's another little caveat with these large language models. But, that's a starting point as well. Just put in your prompt question for your instructions for your assignment or assessment and see what's generated.
I have to tell you that when I was listening to Heather and Anna at their presentation, the thing that I took away that was so exciting for me to twist around in my head was that nobody goes to school with the thought, I want to be a cheater when I grow up. So people tend to cheat for reasons. And when we look at those reasons, then we as professors can think about what it is that we can do to assist them not to cheat. And that is, maybe they're just really bad at time management, or maybe they're afraid to let us know that they don't know the material, or maybe they fear that they don't know the material and they're going to get a bad grade. So one of the things that I've done over time is to make smaller assignments, and it gives them room to fail on things, or at least not do as well on things. And that has really worked in my classrooms. And that mistakes are actually a good thing because it means that they're daring and they're willing to go out there and risk it. So that's really exciting for me. The thing about ChatGPT having consistent writing, I actually put in there one time a writing sample of mine and asked it to write like me. And it did. You couldn't tell my writing from the writing of ChatGPT. So there is not going to be a way that we're going to be able to detect whether or not ChatGPT wrote something. But here's what we can do, is I believe we can ask them the context that they believed their prompt would be within. So ChatGPT is all about context. And context is really what it is that I'm interested in, not necessarily their question. So how is it that they framed their question, and why is it that they included those things in their prompt? And that to me is really exciting because it shows whether or not the understanding, the place of understanding that they came from. So just an idea that I've used.
Love that. And I'm going to play off of that, Sarah. You said, what can we do to help them not to cheat? And sometimes the answer is really hard because we have to get reflective, right? And as faculty members, that can be painful. My class is irrelevant. My work is boring. I've taught the same class for 25 years and I have not adapted to my students I'm just saying it. Y'all are thinking it. I'm saying it, right? So we have to look at what I'm offering relevant to the students I am trying to get engaged in my content. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. And that doesn't mean that we're bad teachers. It means that we need to reevaluate what we're doing. And we also need to, I'm just going to preach to the people out there who want to catch kids, right? I want to catch my students. I'm going to preach to you. You can't. That is outside of your sphere of influence. You cannot control what students do, and you will drive yourself mad trying to do so. So what you have to do is look at where can I affect change? You can affect change in your classroom. You can affect change in your instruction. You can affect change in how you address the use of ChatGPT, how you share that information, how you talk about that with your students, right? So you will drive yourself nuts trying to catch those students, when what you really can do is, like Sarah said, you can really start to change the way you address that. Someone else was talking about the authentic assessments. I apologize, I didn't get the name on the lady talking, but that's the kind of stuff that we can affect. Because if we're trying to say, I will stop every student from using ChatGPT in my class, you're going to drive yourself nuts, and you're going to be missing all the opportunities to build relationships with those students so that they don't use it when you try to get them to give you authentic responses. So just adding that on there.
I think one of the other things that we're missing is that there are other ways to assess students than just giving them written assignments. So let's get creative, have them do a podcast, have them create a video, have them create an infographic. And yes, they may use ChatGPT with that, but it is more of the creative process. And I just think that have them interview someone and record it. There are so many ways, especially I'm an instructional designer. That's how I started before I became a professor. And we just need to think outside the box and let our students shine in different ways.
I do think, go ahead.
I love all of that. And I have to say, Kim, too, what you said is just brilliant, because I've spent far too many years in school to be the police. As a professor, it's my job to take the information that I have and what I've learned and deliver it to students. And it's their job to pick it up. And if they don't, well, that's on them. That's not on me. And the cool thing is with ChatGPT, you can take some of those old tired lectures you have, because I have those too that are, a good decade in the past, pop them in and say, all right, how can I switch this up to make it engaging and relevant for college students today? And it will. I even do it with my announcements. I take my old announcements, pop them to ChatGPT, and I'm like, all right, can you make this student-centered and focused in the language and make it engaging to today's college students and make it relevant for their future jobs? And it just revises my announcements in beautiful ways. And then I send them out to my students. And they're like, wow, this is interesting. So sorry. Thank you, Arturo.
No, those are great points. I do think that we're sort of, and not all of us, right? But in general, we're kidding ourselves if we also don't think that we're going to have to redefine in certain aspects of the work that we do with students what ethical use looks like, right? I think about writing. I think about things like computer programming. That's going to change, right? Fundamentally, it's going to change, right? And what we're going to look at, or what we're going to have to look at as educators, is what does that look like? What is the ethical way of doing that moving forward? Because it'll be different. And we're just talking about generative from a tech standpoint, right? I think about it from the art standpoint, right? With generative image and music, right? Where now you can take this artist's voice, that's timeless, and apply it to, we're going to have to redefine what expression is in a lot of cases, right? And so there's a lot of work ahead, I think, when it comes to what's going to be acceptable and not. And I think part of that is why this type of dialogue is so important, because we're sort of thinking about that, and we need lots of voices in that conversation, and we may at the end not all agree on what that looks like, and that's okay too. And I think part of that is being communicative. I think if what we get is that we're more communicative about our expectations with students, then I think this will be a good thing, right? I think if we're more communicative about our expectations and about what students should expect to us, and we're more transparent about how we create our materials. Every time I do a session now, people ask me, did you use AI to create this session? And of course, every time I say yes, of course, everything that I do now is AI assisted in some way, shape, or form. I'm not trying to hide anything, right? I'm not, I don't have this, it does sometimes feel like this magic box, right? But I found so much value in using these tools. And I think we would be sort of remiss if we didn't show this box to our students and go, look at all these things I've been able to do. You can do these things too. So I do think there's going to be some difficult conversations around ethical use of the integration of AI in our world.
Arturo, I'm going to add to that too, that preparing our students for the workplace, AI is going to be there. And if we completely deprive them of access and do not teach them how to use it ethically and with integrity and with some form of quality, that discernment that we were discussing earlier, then they're not prepared for the workplace that they're going to go out into, and they are going to be behind other students who have gotten that instruction, right? It becomes an equity issue. If we don't prepare them, then students who did get prepared are going to have a better opportunity. And the workplace is still trying to figure out what they're going to do with it, right? So we can take a lot of cue from them as they work their way through what's acceptable and what's not, how we give credit for that and how we don't. But I mean, you can't tell me all the social media out there right now is not AI assisted. There is a ton of it floating out there, and there are some serious people making money as social media consultants who are using AI left and right? So we've really got to look at what is the end result for our students. And when they leave our program, what should they be able to do? Get a job in the workplace, contribute to the field of knowledge. What is it that we want them to do? And how is AI in that field right now? And how are we helping them prepare for that? And if we can create students who are using it ethically, who are transparent, like Arturo said, who are skilled in prompting, they are prompt engineers, and they understand the discernment needed to use the tool correctly, I think then we're going to turn out people who are ready for the workforce, who are ready for research, who are ready for education, who are ready for whatever it is, But if we don't address that and we're only focused on compliance in our classroom, we're missing the boat here.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, it has been a pleasure so far seeing the collaboration and coming together of minds. It's very nice to hear all the different perspectives, the pros and the cons. I think it's important to have both sides to really determine what is the best way to move forward for our program. My question is, has anyone developed any language to put in syllabus or that have utilized it in their programs to address specifically the ethical case? AI, I agree, can have absolute beautiful benefits to the future, and it has its advantages. And the key thing, as some of you have said, is teaching how to use it ethically and how to stay true to the rules and the guidelines that you have to do. You have to be genuine. You have to produce genuine things. So again, my question, does anyone use specific kind of verbiage to really encourage that, or to say, this is what we're going to teach? I feel somebody's going to say on the chat, oh, you just put that into AI and it'll make the language for you.
It will.
Lucerito, at Tarrant County College, we actually, Arturo and I just served on our district-wide committee to provide guidance for faculty on what to put in their syllabi. And we gave them 3 statements. 1, if you're not allowed to use AI. 1, if you're allowed to use it within the confines of my class or within the criteria of my class. And 1 where you're allowed to use it, and here's how I want you to cite it or identify it. And so we provided those. And a lot of people are like, okay, so you gave them some guidance. What happens if a student doesn't use it the way the syllabus says? We, instead of creating this whole new policy that has to go through all the rigmarole and be approved by the board, we're tying it into academic dishonesty in terms of our student handbook and policies that are already in place. If I put something in the syllabus that says you can't use your notes on the quiz and you use your notes on the quiz, that's academic dishonesty because I told you not to use it on the quiz, right? So we are using policy that's already in place. We're addressing that the syllabus needs to be clear. And in the 2 cases where you allow it, you need to be very clear on what's allowed and how it's identified. But we are providing that for our faculty to give them that guidance, so that if they don't want AI used in the class, they have a statement that has been predetermined for them to put in there to notify their students that use of it in the class will be considered academic dishonesty, and we will follow the policy for any academic dishonesty issue. And then the other 2 clarify the use of it and what is accepted, what is not, or if it's totally accepted, how you notify the instructor that you did use it. And then we also follow the student handbook. So at Tarrant County, we're providing that guidance for our faculty in that manner.
In addition
We're
to
doing
that,
the same at TCC. We've got, we've provided 3, or we're going to provide them with 3 already generated, just much like what Kim said. Yes, sort of, and no, just briefly. They can modify that as much as they'd like to their own preference. but it gives them something to think about. It gives them an option just to use those. I put in the chat an open source Google Doc that I believe it was Lance Eaton that started, and people have been contributing it to, it's their own syllabi policy that they have, an AI statement, and then some are actual university institution policies that are in there. So that might give you a really good idea. Another good idea is actually to start using the tools to understand how they work. So you can identify, just so you know what, how they operate. They do have biases, they do hallucinate, they don't tell the truth sometimes. So, yeah, you just want to be as transparent as possible. And something that I heard the other day in a presentation was, I always have a pencil. So don't, it's changing all the time. We are learning every single day about the nuances, right, of these Gen AI tools. And so it's okay if things change, right? So we don't all have the answers right now. So hopefully some of these tools, some of these documents and articles can help you along the way, and others as well, maybe this semester it won't be 100%. You'll have to rewrite it again next semester, and work with your students. Talk to them.
Right.
They're using them too, and they've been using them a little bit longer than we have. Maybe not for the right reasons, right? But
last spring, when this first happened, before we had any type of campus policy, I started a discussion in one of my online classes, and I was like, hey, what do you all think about AI? And it was amazing because my students were really mad at AI at that point in time. And they were not afraid to say that using AI for your assignments is cheating, and that if you do that, you're not going to succeed in life and you're not going to learn anything. And so if you are feeling a little, brave about it, sit down with your students and ask them, what do you think? What is the ethical use? What is not the ethical use? How do you think AI should be used in higher ed? And give them some buy-in. That's going to make it a lot easier, especially for the students who are not understanding the ethics of it. They might hear it from other students and get it in that language better than they're going to get it in the language from a professor.
Interestingly, Heather and I have been talking to some employers and asking, what are your interview questions? What do you want students to know about AI? And they want them to be able to talk about the ethics of it when they come in for a job interview.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. And Ricardo, I saw you raised your hand, but can you hold on just a minute? Because I'd like the panel to address a question that Brenda asked in Q&A, because, Brenda asked that question earlier. And so we try to address it based on the order being received. And Brenda asked, in light of ChatGPT and other LMS being here to stay, how should educators re-examine the essential KSAs? I believe it's knowledge, skills, and abilities that college students will need to acquire in their higher education. In other words, what knowledge, skills, and abilities are no longer necessary, as they will be fulfilled by AI, and which ones, either new or existing KSAs will be essential? That's a good question. So what do you think about this?
I'll jump in on that. In social work, students in many other fields, they have to graduate with certain competencies that are set forth by our accreditation standards. And one of the things, it's knowledge, skills, and values, because it's social work. So what we found to be interesting is that, as we've given it thought, is that you have to have the knowledge in order to perform the skills. And that's the exciting part. That was the piece that I was saying earlier, is that this is going to give us opportunity to really focus on skills, at least in social work, that when they can pick up that knowledge piece in a way that works for them, because remember, adaptive learning is a buzzword right now, but individual professors, it's nearly impossible to practice adaptive learning. But AI can actually help us with that. So that's really exciting. What are the pieces that each student needs to learn in order to be able to practice the skills and to think about why it is that they're doing that? And that's that whole empathy piece, right? So I believe that for social work, for my field, it's a really exciting time with relation to the generative AI.
I don't know that there are any skills that we won't be teaching. It will be different, and maybe certain things will have higher priorities than they did. If you look at what's coming out from McKinsey, from World Economic Forum, there's a lot of emphasis on soft skills, to Sarah's point. But I don't know that there's anything that's truly foundational that will completely just go away.
So I have my students do their work on paper, so I'm not too worried about that. I teach Spanish. But I have been using ChatGPT to write stories for me. I input all the vocab and grammar they've been learning, and then I have it spit out a story for me. My question is, should I be putting, like, I don't know if that's what Arturo was referring to, a statement on my syllabus saying that I will be using items like that, or like, should I heard people talk about ethics. Should I be putting like something in the footnotes, or do I not mention it at all? What are other people doing?
I'd love to say that, yes, why wouldn't you, right? Show your students a productive use of the tool that is helping them as a learning tool. They may look at what you're doing and go, oh, I might be able to use it for the same thing, and I might be able to practice, right? Like that example of making a study guide. He used it to do this, and it doesn't have to be an, oh my God, I use ChatGPT, don't hate me. It can just be this, it's a simulation, right? It's a sample story. It's something like a, I'm from the state of Texas, we have the STAR test in K-12, right? We have all these model essays that we show students to show them the difference, right? And I actually taught all of my 9th grade teachers how to use ChatGPT to write sample writing for them so they can show the difference between a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4, which would have taken us hours if we had to write them ourselves, right? So showing your students that you're using it to be effective, the time you spent not writing those stories yourself gives you time to provide better feedback for them in the course, to spend time grading, to spend time with your family, so using the tool, but being transparent about it. It's not a big deal. I use ChatGPT to help me write your sample stories. That's a way we can use it. And they might just gloss over it and go, okay, fine, whatever. We don't care. I still have to do my homework. Or they may go, oh, that's cool. And that might spark an idea that ChatGPT can be used for some of these more efficiency-based ways that aren't just highly controversial, like cheating. Right? There are some efficiency things that a student could take advantage of that you're demonstrating for them by letting them know when you do and do not use the tool.
Yeah, Ricardo, you don't have to feel dirty or ashamed for using something like ChatGPT. Absolutely. Put it out there.
And someone had commented, I think brilliantly, is talk to your students from day one about it, and they'll be engaged throughout the semester. So I think that transparency is really key. You'll gain trust from the students. And yes, I think providing those great examples, and they may even ask you, well, what did you do to create that? How did you go through the process? So just such lovely opportunities to have conversations that we might not otherwise with our students.
And also, excuse me, go ahead, Heather.
Go ahead. Thank you. Just something that was brought up the other day, and we haven't really talked about it though, is the data privacy and having students use these tools, or even ourselves, right? And many of them require either a telephone number, an email address, but there are a couple out there that don't require that. You could just log on and start using. If this is a concern for any of your students or yourselves, it's Perplexity is one. Pi AI is another. Pi AI is like an emotional, I like getting into little conversations with Pi. It's very compassionate and caring. But yeah, those, and we want to also keep in mind that if we do have assignments that have AI, and you're collaborating with AI in these assignments, we need to be mindful that we might have students that do not want to use these tools. And so we need to have in our back pocket some alternatives available for those students.
In Q&A, I asked, do you have sample scenarios or cases for how to make quizzes or bonus point, etc.?
I have used a couple of different services for creating various actual classroom resources, and including quizzes. I have posted in lecture notes. I've also posted in outlines of class content and things of that nature, and have asked just very simply to create a quiz based upon the material, and it does so. I have had to, just through practice, found that it's better if I'm also a little bit more specific about the skill level of my students, whether that's college level students or whatnot, which it then kind of bumps up the lever of rigor and things of that nature. Been very easy, very quick, a whole lot quicker than what I could certainly create a quiz from scratch myself. And it comes up with many of the same types of questions that I would have probably generated on my own, given a little bit more time. So been pretty productive, and I can't really imagine myself not using it if I've got that available to me.
One thing that you can do too is to record your classes with Otter AI, of course,
yes,
that you are. So that will provide a transcript, and from that transcript, you can just upload that, and it will develop quizzes from that transcript. And that's just another AI. But what I really wanted to put out was, this is my own piece, but wouldn't it be super cool if a whole group of us were to get together and just hash out some use cases so that we can, one day have a collection to give to folks. I know that Heather was looking for something like that, but we really need to get moving on this, that folks that are passionate about it. There are people that I've worked with that don't know how to sign on to ChatGPT, but they're really excited about it and they want to use it. But, some of us are dinosaurs, but they're dinosaurs that are interested. So it would be great if we could provide some resources for them.
Throw out really quick, I'm sorry, Tom, that Dr. Ozuna has actually written a prompting guide for faculty on how to design their courses. So Arturo, I'm throwing you under the bus, but it's a fantastic guide for faculty. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Put it in the chat. Can you put it in the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sharing it now, but I walked through a prompting guide essentially that goes through the planning phase, the design phase, course level outcomes to topics, alignment of outcomes. So it'll show you alignment, learning resources, how to build learning activities to gauge specific mastery of specific learning outcomes. So all kinds of prompting opportunities there. Assessment questions to gauge mastery of specific learning outcomes, creating rubrics, organizing modules for different course length formats. So, how do you go from a 16-week module course to a 10-week module course, stuff like that. So we want people testing these and giving us feedback on this. And it's Creative Commons, openly licensed. So yeah, we'd appreciate everyone looking at this stuff and giving us some feedback. And
I already shared the IDN resources for ChatGPT and generative AI, and I hope you like it. And thank you so much again, everybody, for your time and the support. We are finalizing our 2023 to 2024 IDN Professional Development Webinar Series, which will start in September. And we are going to announce that schedule pretty soon. We will see you in September. And enjoy the rest of the summer and have a wonderful start of the semester. So, goodbye.